the action with the world's only boxing robot, the Rock'em Sock'em Robot by Marx.
Welcome, everybody. It's Tuesday. That's 22/02/2022 in the world outside the U.S. or 2/22/22 in the U.S. This is episode 441 of an Unearthly podcast featuring The Empty Planet, written by Gareth Roberts and starring Elizabeth Sladen as Sarah Jane Smith, Daniel Anthony as Clyde Langer, Anjali Mohindra as Rani Chandra, and Alexander Armstrong as Mr. Smith. I am Bill Sylvia, the one in black, and with me are Alex Fireheart.
You know it's like budget when there's only 5 characters.
And Mad Matt Winchell.
Well, at least they put most of the budget into the robots.
Randy Ronson McCulloch is undergoing some health issues today. Last photo I saw, he was at least conscious and in a seemingly decent mood. So hopefully he's doing pretty well and will be with us next week.
Yeah, I've heard from Erin that supposedly she went to see him and he was doing okay. He seems to have at least stabilized.
And I saw he does have his Switch with him to keep his sanity.
At least keep himself busy.
When he said he wouldn't be here this week, I'm like, dude, I was just thinking, like, dude, I've been surprised if you were going to be here this week. Like, just rest up.
Right. He's in that current position. I surprisingly got called into work today, but thankfully it's only for 4 hours.
Oh, that's good.
Mm-hmm.
Unless you need the money.
Well, I need the money either way. I'm trying to make trying to build up that stack so I can finally get a PC. Build up the stack, get a PC. After that's done, maybe save up for a couple other PC implements. But then the next big thing to save up for is going to be a gaming vehicle if I need to. Because I like to be reliable.
Right.
On my own.
Yeah, self-reliant.
Because this whole relying on other people to get around thing is starting to get real old real fast.
Yeah.
I know a lot of people who get frustrated even with the idea of relying on public transportation. And I live in a town with a pretty robust public transportation system, especially for being such a small town. But it sounds like you don't have that great public transportation to get where you need to go. So that I imagine
we
would
don't
just
even
make
have
it
taxis
worse.
around here.
Whoa.
Yeah, this is a town, not a city, not anything big. This is the little town.
That said, taxis, Uber, and Lyft are pretty much non-existent here either. There's just the bus.
Yeah, we don't even have that. I don't even know the last time I've seen a Greyhound.
Oh, wow.
And those travel almost everywhere.
Let's see.
So for my own, speaking of things like travel, I spent this past weekend in San Francisco at a social psychology conference.
Oh, that's right.
It was a good time, although since it was my first time traveling as a graduate student, I had kind of underestimated the amount of time I would be spending with other people. Normally at a conference, I kind of, I go home, I eat dinner by myself, and then I have a few hours to either do work or just relax. Instead, I had a roommate, and I spent a lot of time eating with, colleagues and such. So it went pretty well, but I had the day that I traveled out there and the day that I traveled back were 2 nights in which I only got 2 hours of sleep. And therefore, I'm still recovering because I didn't get any extra sleep to make up for it. I only got the regular amount of sleep on the other days.
Gotcha. Oh. So yeah. Anything on your end?
Not really. I mean, I worked an extra hour yesterday, but other than that, it's just been playing games, streaming, and stuff like that. Because it's so funny. I realized how useless I am without guides that, like, 2 weeks ago, I lost all of this progress in a stream because of a glitch in the game preventing me from stopping a game over. And I got the progress back in less time because I knew what the fuck I was doing. And then, like, the last stream, it was just a lot of running around like a chicken with my head cut off because it was just like, I don't know where I need to go, and this game's not necessarily telling me. So,
Right.
like,
that was kind
not
of
even like hand holding, but like just like, here's a general thing that you need to, like, it'd be like they have a mechanic in the game that's like, you talk to your little companion and they'll tell you what to do, but they don't necessarily tell you where to go half the time.
So
it's like,
it sounds like kind of like an old school RPG where it's all about talking to everyone you see and putting the clues together slowly.
I mean, not really, because this is a very, like, to a point linear-ish game. Like, you're wandering around these varying worlds and that, but they're all fairly small and stuff. But it's like, go here. Like, I mean, there are maps in that, but they only help so much because, like, there's one bit where it's like, you have to get across to the other side of this bridge. The bridge is out. Okay, so how the hell? Oh no, you have to go back to that building that you just came from and go out the basement and go underneath the bridge. It's like, I wouldn't have known to go that way. Like, it's just so funny. It's like a lot of that kind of stuff where it's just like, I had to, like, trying my hardest to avoid using a walkthrough, and the game just getting me to a point where I'm like, well, fuck, I have to.
That's
because this is not linear at all. Well, it's like, it's linear, but it's not. So it's like, it's not telling me where to go. So
that's very similar to what I experienced in my last stream yesterday. I'm going through an area in Bloodstained Ritual of the Night where it's just like, okay, it's nice that these Japanese developers made like a very Japanese-styled location inside this dungeon and all, but holy smokes, why is everything kicking my ass so hard? When did the difficulty go from like about a 6 or an 8 to a sudden 11?
I'm having the opposite issue on Pokemon Legends Arceus because I spent all my time doing the Pokédex tasks before going to the first boss. And then I was like, okay, time to fight the first boss, and it's done. So now it's either like, okay, either the plot has nothing in it for me, or I need to stop doing the other things the game encourages me to do.
I will say specifically, this game was like is an early PS2 game. That got ported to PS4, so it's like, clearly I don't think they ported the version that had all the fixes in it, maybe. But also, yeah, it's one of those things where, like, it's come up on stream a few times, but I'm like, can this game get remade, please? Modern time? Because the concept is, and like, when I finish the game, I'll talk about it on Geek Talk, but it's like, the concept of the game is very interesting, and there are other elements of that are interesting, but like,
the execution starts to
like
fumble.
Yeah, the execution's a bit wonk because it's early PS2.
Yeah. But yeah, I got frustrated in my last stream to the point where I just kept going down the same hallway with ninjas and just going, the hell with you, the hell with you. Matter of fact, what is this ability you guys keep dropping for me? Shuriken throwing? Fine. You can eat your own weapons right back in the face. I'm so sick and tired of taking a pillar of fire every time I stop to hit one of you guys. I'm so sick of you. Why are you so menacingly damaging when you're just these meek little guys that for some reason just won't take one hit like you're supposed to? Even literally switching out weapons, just trying to see if anything will hit them faster or harder enough to make them just go away, and just not working for me and just becoming more and more frustrating. And even after that, I try to leave, realize there's a little section of the map that I hadn't gone through yet. Go up there, find a boss, and the boss immediately destroys me 4 times in a row. Yeah, I'm about a bit annoyed. At the very least, what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be grinding ninjas until their sub-weapon actually kills them. And if I can get that and I still can't beat that boss, then I'm going to start grinding money so I can at least get all the healing items I need, because they have a very strict limit of healing items you can get. But at the same time, you can use food as healing items, and after you've made it at least once, you can just go to the shop and buy it. And let's just get all the healing items, please, because this is ridiculous.
All right, so it seems our updates are that we have all been playing video games.
And some of us getting more frustrated than others.
So on tonight's show, we have our birthdays and news, and we actually have one article with a few pieces of news in it, plus, of course, your perennial Big Finish. We have some geek talk, and then, of course, so we have our episode summary, which I didn't take notes for, but I should know enough to be able to do it, so that'll be fun. Our episode review, final thoughts, and ratings.
Alrighty.
So to start with, we have birthdays. There's quite a few birthdays, but they all seem pretty relevant. So, yeah.
Power through 'em.
Start with,
Power through 'em.
Yep. So we have Christopher Eccleston, which after the past few weeks, I hope everybody knows what role he played. He turned 58. And he was the Doctor in 2005. Jeremy Bullock is one of our honorary mentions. He played Tor in the Space Museum and Hal in The Time Warrior, but he's far better known as the suit actor for Boba Fett. He would have turned 77, but he died at the age of 75 in 2020. Kevin Manser, also on the 16th, is our least known one of our less known mentioned names here. But he was one of the original Dalek operators and also operated a Zarbi, operating Daleks from 1963 to 1966 on both the small and the big screen. He would have been 93, except he died in 2001 at the age of 72. That brings us to the 17th of February. So to start off, we have two kind of stand-in companion actors. Jack Montgomery played the young version of Captain Jack Harkness in a 2008 episode, and recently turned 30. Dallas Adams played Chameleon only in The Planet of Fire in 1984, and would have been 75, but died in 1991 at the age of 44. Philip Latham played Barusa in The Five Doctors in 1983, and would have been 93, but died in 2020 at the age of 91. Anjali Mohindra, who you might remember from our opening introductions, played Ronnie from 2008 to 2011, and Queen Skithra in 2020. She turned 32 on the 20th of February. And also on the 20th, our final birthday is Anthony Stewart Head, who played Mr. Finch in School Reunion and was the Doctor Who Confidential narrator in 2006, but is far better known as Rupert Giles from Buffy the Vampire Slayer. He turned 68. So happy birthday to Christopher, Jeremy, Kevin, Jack, Dallas, Philip, Anjali, and Anthony. Or I believe he more often goes by Tony, but I could not find anything consistent. So,
It is what it is.
Yep. Moving from birthdays to lost stories, we do have one actor who has passed. Former partner to Katie Manning, both on and off screen, Stuart Bevan died of undisclosed reasons yesterday at the age of 73. Bevan played Professor Clifford Jones in The Green Death, who married the companion Jo Grant. In real life, Bevan was Katie Manning's partner from 1972 to 1974. Bevan was born in London to Welsh parents and would train at the Corona Theatrical School. One of his first roles was in the film To Sir with Love, and other film credits include Lock Up Your Daughters, Burke and Hare, The Flesh and Blood Show, and Steptoe and Son Ride Again. In addition to Doctor Who, he had appeared in television shows such as Emmerdale Farm, Shoestring, Blake 7, The One Din Line, Ivanhoe, Nanny, Casualty, Grange Hill, The House of Elliot, and Brookside.
Hello?
My throat is already annoyed at me.
Oh, okay.
Well, I was also pausing in case anybody else wanted to make a comment. But yes,
Quite
Katie
the list.
Manning. Huh? Yeah.
Quite the list.
Katie Manning did post a tribute. I guess my understanding is she considered him a friend until his death.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And,
That's what they
yeah.
mentioned a couple times, even though they broke up.
Right.
I definitely remember seeing behind the scenes stuff of the Green Death where they were interviewed together because they still get along.
Oh, like things that took place, like interviews after the fact.
Yeah. For like the DVD release,
Mhm.
when they were doing interviews for the cast, they interviewed both of them together.
Yep. So it seems Stewart will be fondly missed, and hopefully it was caused due to natural causes and not. Apparently, the latest term I've heard used is the vid.
Ugh.
I don't know. I don't think YouTube has ever flagged one of our videos for mentioning it, but whatever.
As far as I'm aware, no one gets flagged for just saying the virus.
So that was more paranoia than actual fact then.
As far as I'm aware. For calling out the full name or whatever, for some reason they would overreact. But for some reason, just calling out virus is usually been safe. I mean, Internet Historian did it for like 2 whole videos talking about some of the crazy stuff that went down. But yeah.
Gotcha.
Should be fine.
Moving on to current episode news. Between the wrap party for Series 13, some tweets on the 2022 specials, and the Gallifrey 1 convention, Doctor Who executive producer Matt Stravens and several others have had a bit to say. To start with, in an Instagram photo from the wrap party, which was posted by casting director Andy Pryor, that would be the third photo on that scroll if you haven't seen it yet, Matt.
The Instagram stuff, which is always blocked every time I try seeing it.
It's not even letting you see the embed?
Nope. It just shows blank things with a view this post on Instagram.
That's fucking annoying.
Yeah, it keeps doing that. This is why I hate Instagram. Fuck this. And there's not even a proper link to it either. Just blue text saying, see this on Instagram. Well, at least you gotta link me to it, you piece of work.
Let's see. Let me see if I can get the link to share.
Because I don't think Instagram.
Yeah, I can't see the post on Instagram itself without logging in and following him.
Yeah. It's been officially blocked then.
Are you looking
that's just how Instagram works.
Are you using Chrome or something else?
I'm using Chrome right now.
That is freaking weird because I'm looking at it on Chrome and I can see it fine.
Don't look at me.
You know what?
These things never work on my version of Chrome for whatever reason. It never has when I'm trying to stream stuff, so shrug.
You have an Instagram block. Okay, so I am going to copy this photo and send it to you in the group chat.
This is why social media is cancer.
Okay, so I've just posted the photo in the group chat, so you can You should hopefully be able to pull it up for the stream there. But so that's a sailor photo that at least Colebox is speculating might be from Legends of the Sea Devils. I would question why the rap party would be having Legends of the Sea Devils costumes instead of Centenary Specials costumes, but you never know.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it might just be that he felt like wearing a silly costume to the rap party.
Which is honestly just as likely, so shrug.
In other news, Strivens revealed that while developing the Thasmin, or 13 plus Yasmin, ship was not part of the original long-term plan developed when Chibnall took over the show. There will be further development in one of the remaining specials. That mention in Eve of the Daleks was not a one-off. It was leading somewhere. Mandip Gill mentioned at Gallifrey 1 that while she didn't know the ship was going to be addressed explicitly until Eve of the Daleks pre-production started, care was taken to make sure the Ark was covered in an authentic manner.
We'll see.
Hmm.
But the way Chibnall writes thing care, because he seems to come written on a sledgehammer.
Specifically, the word was conversations were had, but they don't exactly say with who, so that seems a little odd to me. I'm hoping with people who actually lived the experiences that Mandip will be acting out.
Yeah.
At the same time, also, I'm a firm believer that you can only say so much, and you're allowed to only say certain things until after you're done with the production, too. So
very true. Just like
I remember the Ghostbusters being forced to say how much they liked being in Ghostbusters 2016 until after it was out, and then they're just like, yeah.
Same with the Star Wars sequel trilogy.
Mm-hmm.
And on the flip side, you have Tom Holland, and Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield, who were required to pretty much lie and say there was only one Spider-Man in Spider-Man 8 for the entire press tour.
Yeah, until of course things start to leak, and then they're just like, okay.
I'm pretty sure it wasn't until the day that debuted that they finally broke silence.
Okay, so yeah, they were probably under TOS.
Was going freaking crazy. Yeah,
they were probably under TOS until it was officially out, even though there was leaks.
The last bit of news that I was able to find in that article is that while the air date for Legend of the Sea Devils was not revealed at Gallifrey 1, director, I'm going to try to pronounce this right, Haolu Wong, on his CV, actually I'm not sure if that's a he, she, or they, but on that director's CV, it is listed as a 60-minute special that is airing on Easter Sunday, which is April 17, 2022.
Again, we'll see.
Yep. I'm not. There are some photos from Gallifrey 1, but I don't know if they actually show anything worth talking about.
I'll poke them really quickly. I think it's just mostly cast and crew on stage and seeing audience. Yeah. Pretty much.
The fact that Sacha Dhawan was there might be relevant, but then again, he's been all over the past season or so. So it's not like not specifically the last season, but definitely the previous one. So
yeah,
that doesn't necessarily mean he's coming in the next 2 episodes. Of course, we hope that he is.
Shrug.
And so apparently an attendee of the convention tweeted that Joe Martin will be in the Centenary special and then deleted that tweet. So it's kind of open to interpretation whether that's because people were told not to share information or whether it was just wrong.
Or unless it was just a bunch of BS just to make people scream and try and find out whether that was true or not.
Right. All right. That moves us on to Big Finish. Short Trips Volume 11, released on February 15, featuring 6 stories starring Dan Starkey as several Centaurans, Jacob Dudman as the Doctor, and John Colshaw as, I believe, the Doctor and the Master. So at this point, it's just a whole bunch of impersonators.
Mm-hmm.
At least for some short trips.
That's pretty useful for short trips, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
Also, we have Old Friends, which released on February 16, which features 3 stories starring Christopher Eccleston as the Doctor, John Colshaw as Brigadier Lethbridge Stewart, and Nicholas Briggs as the Cybermen.
That's true. I guess he has done classic Cybermen at least once, hasn't he?
Mm-hmm. Lots of times for Big Finish.
Mm-hmm.
And finally, we have Torchwood Sunny, released on February 22, written by Lizzie Hopley and starring Kai Owen as Reese Williams and Neris Hughes as Brenda Williams, which I'm assuming is Reese's mother.
Maybe? Or somebody else related to him somehow.
Right. And that is the end of the news.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So first one on Geek Talk, Book of Boba Fett again.
Yep.
So I'll start the stopwatch. You start it.
Yep. Okay. Yeah, I decided to just get around and might as well crank this out as well. Now that I had caught up on Mandalorian. And I can definitely the people who are saying that this somehow ruins Boba Fett, I don't know why they think that. I mean, beyond most of the people saying that are people who prefer expanded universe who's no longer canon Boba Fett. Rather than him just being a cool look and that's it. Yeah. But yeah, I like this show, but there are just some weird decisions made. Like Bill brought up last week, there's a lot of flashback to what happened to him directly after the events of Return of the Jedi, intermingled with stuff that's supposed to be happening when this is set in post Mandalorian 2, Mandalorian season 2. And it really does feel like if they'd just done all the flashback stuff at the start and then gone into everything else after, it probably would have flowed a bit better.
So you're saying without doing the Highlander, not A story, B story sort of thing?
Yeah. I much would have preferred we just get all the backstory out, especially because it feels like it probably wouldn't have even taken that many episodes, as much as I know I discussed with Bill. It's you basically could have done 2 seasons that were very short, and or something to that effect, or even just a maybe slightly longer season, but front loaded with all of the what happened to him after Return of the Jedi stuff, and then the post Mandalorian season 2 stuff. But even then, it probably wouldn't need that much extra time. It's because you would be taking all of these other things out from the episodes they're actually in to start with and just making them their own episodes. So it'd probably only be 2 episodes, maybe 3, which would leave 4 episodes for the post Mandalorian season 2 stuff. Although then the show kind of takes a sharp right turn into Mandalorian season 2.5 for some reason. It's is what I joked about it to Bill. It's it's just 2 episodes in this that have nothing to do with Boba Fett at all, and I'm why? This doesn't need to be here. This seriously just feels like they did not have enough material to justify 7 episodes. Well, then don't do 7 episodes.
Actually, the way that you guys have been describing it so far, it sounds like they obviously did the stuff that people want to see, which is what was the lead up after Return of the Jedi. Then start to do their Boba Fett sequel to Mandalorian 2, but then immediately, for no apparent reason, needed to add more after between Boba Fett and season 3 of Mandalorian, so they immediately just crammed something in there because apparently they're missing something.
So the basically season 3 prelude stuff, it does have a role in the climax of Boba Fett's plot, so it does kind of fit in there, but they did it in a way that did not fit very well. There were definitely better ways to go about it.
They set up for season. They felt the need to set up for season 3, and they just kind of jammed it in there. And it's a bit jarring.
Yeah, it feels like the Mandalorian just kind of hijacks the show for 2 episodes, and it's just like, I mean, the episodes are nice, but what does this have to do with Boba Fett?
It very much does sound like it should have been the start of the next season.
Yeah, like it would have made sense to just like go straight to him showing up at that with stuff that happens in those episodes and just being like, well, how did he get to this point? Find out in The Mandalorian season 3, maybe. But yeah, anyway, it's like, it's still worth of watching, and the people who are like, this ruined Boba Fett need to actually watch the finale, because holy shit. But
I've honestly actually not heard anyone that says that ruined it. The funny thing, I've actually heard a few people going, this has actually fixed him a bit more.
Yeah. Again, I feel like the people who are saying that it somehow ruined the character never actually watched the whole thing. But yeah,
people. I think some people were saying it as of like the first half of the show.
Yeah,
because everybody knows when you make a decision halfway through a show or less, your decision is always correct.
Well, to be fair, there's a lot of people who try to watch anime, and they basically do have the rule of watch the first 5 episodes. If it doesn't grip you, it's time to leave. So to be fair, but then again, this is only 7 episodes long, so you would think that after the 5 episode rule, they would be a little more gripped if it's good, but who knows?
Yeah. Anyway, that's about all I've got. I mean, we've gone over 6 minutes now.
Yeah,
anyway,
it's just over 6. So.
So yeah.
And yeah, Naruto.
Yep. So I really only decided to discuss this because I had literally nothing else other than Boba Fett. But yeah, the power arc of Naruto Shippoden is very interesting because even though it's a filler arc set before what's happening at the time, it's a different quality of animation that seems like it's got a bit more budget behind it. And it's specifically an arc unto itself. Like, it is a story within these 6 episodes. Like, some village gets completely massacred except for like a couple of kids and like one guy. And they're after this almighty powerful thing, whatever. And all this shit. And they tie it into the main narrative of what's kind of happening, sort of. But even though it's supposed to be set like, I don't know, 6 months, couple months or whatever ago, compared to where the show is at this point. And honestly, it's worth a watch for people like who would normally skip Naruto filler. This is honestly a Naruto filler worth watching, just because it's at least like a concise 6 episode story that you could honestly watch in isolation. The weird thing that I felt about it, and the only reason I really wanted to talk about it, is because it feels like this is supposed to be the plot of a movie that they just adapted to TV instead of making a movie.
It very much could have been that they had to cancel a movie and they just used the budget for that to make the filler arc to allow the normal team some more time.
I will say one element of this that kind of threw me off, and I had to actually look up was that there's sort of a budding romance between these two side characters. But the woman keeps referring to the man as her brother. And I'm like, okay, this is like, initially I'm like, are they actually related?
Is this like brother in the
Or
Yakuza sense, or?
Yeah,
is his brother in like the clan sense or brother as in biological sense? Because if it's the later, it's a bit weird.
Yeah, it's affectionate rather than literal. And
gotcha.
I mean, it's still weird that she's referring to this guy that she wants to get with as her brother. But like, I'm realizing if I was watching this in Japanese, I don't think I would have necessarily have taken it literally because
because I'm pretty sure they have a different terminology for it. I'm sure in Japanese.
I've watched anime in Japanese with subtitles where characters have been affectionately referred to as older sibling or whatever, like they'll be like younger girls referring to they'll be like younger girls referring to older girls as their sister or characters their brother, whatever. It's still weird. It just doesn't translate very well to English.
Yeah, it's just a sentiment that doesn't quite translate well unless you really reword it.
So yeah, like when they're about to kiss at one point and the guy backs off, I'm thinking, and she says, "You can still be my big brother." I'm like, okay, what? Like again, it's just kind of weird. Like it's a weird wording. It's just like, did he back off because it's like, no, this is incest, it's wrong, or no, this feels weird anyway.
Yeah, the moment you have to hit the bricks and immediately do research because I don't know what to think anymore.
Yeah, because I looked it up and it's like, no, they are not related in the slightest. They just grew up together. So it's a thing if maybe they've had like a sibling-ish relationship because they were that close that developed into
so it's the fucking Flash.
But like it's just such a weird choice in the English dub to keep that when they could have easily have just had an affectionate
there's
nickname.
A lot of weird terminology when you directly translate some things.
Yeah.
Look at you, DBZ. You've done some weird ass shit.
Yeah. And of course, the funny thing is, in anime, it's kind of surprising for me that this happens, but like the idea being that this guy is like, think of it as like if Mark Ruffalo, they're like, you know how everyone got pissy about the Mark Ruffalo Bruce Banner, like trying to like almost them trying to separate a relationship between that version of the Hulk and Black Widow. This is kind of like that because this guy is like this frumpy fat nerd dude and this woman has like Angelina Jolie lips. Like it's just like, okay, how's that woman like in any sort of realistic sense, if they hadn't grown up together, how does that guy land that woman? Like, and again, it's like things. they've grown up together. It's so it's more like, okay,
honestly,
I get it,
if it's just based on looks, I've heard of stranger couples.
Well, yeah, but
it's
just like, okay, but yeah, there's a lot of interesting visuals in this. Yeah, pretty much. There's interesting stuff in this anyway. Besides, and we get an interesting
6.5 minutes, by the way.
Yeah, we get an interesting Naruto transformation that does not happen outside of this, I think, as well, which is really fun to look at. But yeah, I would definitely say for people who like Naruto Shippuden, if you actually skipped this because it is technically a filler arc, honestly, again, it's 6 episodes. They're all about 20-something minutes long. You could crank out the whole thing in a day if you had the time. I would legitimately recommend this to be checked out.
Alrighty.
So now it's time for the episode summary.
Yep.
Someone give me a countdown.
All right, I'm going to swap to the image holder for the rest of the stream. And ready?
Yep.
3, 2, 1, begin.
All right, so the episode starts in Sarah Jane's attic, where the big three plus Mr. Smith are looking into an alien transmission that they can't quite figure out the cause of. Sarah Jane tells the kids to go home and expresses that she's frustrated, she can't figure it out. Next thing we know, it's the next morning, and Ronnie realizes that she cannot find her parents. And her phone's not working, and Sarah Jane's not there, and Mr. Smith is not inside his casing, computer, whatever the fuck. Finally, she and Clyde find each other, and they seem to be the only people left on Earth. They start trying to figure out what's going on, and they start to see some movement and find out that there's also a kid named who they eventually then track down and find that his name is Gavin. They start talking, trying to figure out why they're the only people left, and realize that Ronnie and Clyde were affected by the Jadoon in some way, and therefore not going to be taken in whatever rapture occurred, but that does not explain Gavin. Then some robots come. At first, they think the robots are trying to kill them or kidnap them or something. They run, but eventually they manage to teach the robots English using a newspaper, and they begin to communicate. It seems like the robots want to steal the Earth's air and its sun, but then they realize, no, it's looking for the sun and air in the sense of a prince. They kind of put two and two together and realize that Gavin, who has never met his father and whose mother is dead, must be this prince, because otherwise why wasn't he taken in the rapture? But he's wearing a ring that is a biodampener. They remove the ring, and then the robots recognize Gavin as their new king. He then gives the order to bring all the humans back and to take him with them. And then the next morning, Ronnie gets scolded for disappearing for an hour, or sorry, the same morning, but everybody's back. Ronnie gets scolded for disappearing with Clyde for an hour and a half. Because I guess it's all her fault. And then they fill Sarah Jane in, the end.
All right. Bring this up so the stream can see.
That better be under 5 minutes.
You did it in 2 minutes, 39 seconds. Just almost 40.
Not bad for unscripted, but not a lot happened in this episode.
Right, and there's only
a pretty streamlined episode for the most part.
And yet, despite not a lot happening, it was still a much more satisfying ending than The Power of Three.
Right. When the children's show's better written than the family show. Mm-hmm.
So Mad Matt is first with what we like about the episode.
What I like about the episode in general. You know what? We mentioned that this is a low budget episode because it's mostly focused on 3 characters and the 2 robots. The 2 robots are exceedingly decently budgeted. They both have a very similar look. They have completely different color paint jobs, but very similar paint jobs at the same time. And they even have what I assume is animatronic heads on them, because I think they're too bulky for a normal actor inside of it to move those heads.
I was going to say...
Yeah, they're animatronic or a puppet or something.
Yeah, I was going to say, you would have to have pretty tall actors. And even then, the heads aren't all that big. So
yeah, the heads are a little too small for a normal actor's head to move them, so they have to be, at least in certain shots, animatronic. And I assume on other shots, when they're marching around freely, they must be just like lit up lights and that they have a stationary head for. It's the easiest way to do that effect, says someone who's studied a lot of making ofs. But yeah, they obviously threw some budget into those robots, and it would be nice to see them again, but we haven't as of yet, as far as I'm aware.
Yeah, I'm surprised. With as much as Doctor Who loves recycling stuff, that like some Sarah Jane stuff has been shown up in like either Torchwood or the main show, I'm kind of surprised there hasn't been they haven't reused these robots at all.
At least to our knowledge.
I think that's because I don't think they ever named the planet they were from.
True,
and
they
it's
did
hard-
not name where they're from in this particular episode.
Because I remember when I was making the title card, there was an entry just labeled "Planet" from the empty planet, which implies that there was no name to the planet they came from, which makes it really hard to reuse them.
I mean, you could
That
easily
that actually makes it more easy to use them because then you could just make up something elsewhere.
Right. You could basically just say that they were like not unique to that planet and just be like they just happened to
They're from Nebula M5 for all we know. That's an Ultraman reference. But yeah, I really appreciated the suit work because they definitely threw enough into it that these actors could do quite a bit because they're marching around. They're doing a little bit of like close up acting with the kids, and there's also the points where they're like marching through glass and pushing around dumpsters and everything else. So they could get a lot done with these particular suits.
All right, Alex.
I just like the fact that they take advantage of this only really being Ronnie and Clyde to actually show them being proactive. Like they're both trying to figure out what's going on. They're constantly thinking. Like there's no like montage of this taking several hours and them just giving up or whatever, but they're just constantly
they just go back to the one place to take quick breaks and think.
Yeah, but they're constantly trying to figure this out, and they don't have. And generally, I just like that this is a thing. This story's basically just there to be like these two actually matter. Like they're not just they even they bring it up in dialogue. It's like they just feel like the hangers on. They're like there's Luke, who's the genetically engineered genius, and Sarah Jane, who's got all the experience, and then here are these two, and like this shows that they actually do have worth to be here. Because
they, at this point, they have had enough experience that they can actually handle some of these matters on their own once they need to.
Yeah. Yep. I mean, it's a good thing that they're like, that's also the other strength of this is that it gives them something they can actually figure out. This isn't like an invading force where they're the only two people left.
Right. It's not a Dalek invasion.
Yeah.
Yeah, Dalek invasion might be a little too much for these kids. Yeah. They would definitely need more help.
Mine is similar from a different direction. So Alex's sounded like they were focused more on the writing side of things. I want to call out the acting. I think that without a great acting job, an episode like this could really fall apart. From Ronnie and Clyde, we definitely got a very nuanced performance. Like you see, Ronnie is just trying hard not to just break down and is like snapping as a result and just trying to hold it together. And Clyde, you also see a different kind of range of emotions, a little harder to describe, I think, but they definitely showed their acting chops enough to hold together an entire episode on their own. Because Gavin was a kind of wooden character, but I think I wouldn't even call that a bad acting job. That was the role. I don't know if it would have been any better or different. And the robots are robots. So they're really the only two people whose job is to act. And they did what they needed to do. It was good.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's definitely a thing of like, this could have been sink or swim. And, because it's like, they're putting all this responsibility to carry the story on the two child actors, and they're actually managing to pull it off.
Right.
Yeah, that's a hard task for anything, including movies. There are so many horror movies that suddenly turn to the kid actors, and so many of them just fumble.
Yeah. Because like it's not even like because like in other like focus episodes, there's usually still Sarah Jane around in the background somewhere if she is still
Or in a
around, but
painting.
it's just very clear. Yeah.
Or stuck in a painting.
But so they usually at least have her around to fall back on. In this, they don't have her at all.
Yeah, this is even less than the last one where it was a Luke focus, more or less.
Yeah. So they literally do have to carry the entire story, and they pull it off.
Okay, Matt, what do you dislike about this episode?
Oh, what I dislike the most about this episode? Yeah, I do have to say that I keep forgetting what his name even is. The third kid.
Gavin.
Yeah, he's it's not his fault. I assume it's probably a little bit of how it's written is that his character is really forgettable. And he's literally just there to be the MacGuffin.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if any of that is the actor's fault, but yeah, definitely. I don't think he was written in a particularly interesting way either.
Yeah. He basically gets mind sparked at the very end, and he immediately is like, "Oh wow, yeah, there's a better life for me, way away from here."
I want to see how old he was at the time.
I wouldn't be surprised if he's at best in his early or in his late teens.
So IMDb does not say his age, although apparently he started acting in 1996.
You can still be a child actor, so.
What? Right? Yeah. So it wasn't his first acting role. He was probably still under 18.
Yeah, and if he's had enough experience by that point, I can't completely blame him so much as it is what the character was written to be, and you can only do so much with it.
And that kind of, I almost didn't think I would have something, but that kind of goes into what my point would be, and my overall dislike is they make it clear that he's supposed to be like a decent amount younger than them,
but
he doesn't come off. But he doesn't come off like it. I feel like the performance he's giving would have made a hell of a lot more sense for someone who was like 10 or like younger. But they've got Gavin looks like he's maybe supposed to be like 13 or 14.
All I can tell is he was playing a 9-year-old in 2007, so maybe he was supposed to be 12. And by the way, when I just said he started acting in 1996, that was incorrect based on the way IMDb labels things. He actually started acting in 2005. So
it would have been just a couple years before this.
Right.
Yeah.
So he might have been like 12 years old. It's kind of hard to tell.
Yeah. But yeah, I don't know, like just, and I guess that's just like the funny thing about having people that are anywhere in that sort of preteen range, depending on the kid, they're gonna possibly look slightly older or something. But it's like they're saying the way that Ronnie and Clyde are acting, this kid is like a lot younger because Ronnie's like, oh, you know, when you were younger, like older kids look big and scary. And I'm like, he's about the same height as you.
Yeah, he's almost the same height as them.
Yeah,
it's nowhere near the big difference between me and my bullies when I was younger.
It would help because wasn't Luke not a huge much amount bigger, but wasn't he decently taller than Clyde and Ronnie?
I think so, yeah.
Roughly close to possibly the tallest of them, yeah.
So maybe it would have been more visually obvious if he was there. Like, I think Clyde is kind of a short kid, and Ronnie is a girl who was, tends to be shorter than boys anyway.
But yeah, like if they'd cast it younger, then
it might have made a little more sense. Yeah.
And in a way, like the scared little kid thing that he seems to kind of have going would make a lot more sense for someone who's like between 5 and 10. Especially because he's not having to really carry the episode. He's just kind of there to throw in the odd comment now and then. So he's not doing much.
Yeah, I guess it would make more sense for somebody under 10 to be trying to hide in a corner and forgetting to go into the closet while hiding from some 18-year-olds who I think are playing 16 or 17.
Hmm.
Yeah.
So that was was that Matt's?
That was both ours. So it's up to you, Bill.
Both of yours?
He
when
kind of
Matt was
attached
done, I
off of mine,
basically,
yeah.
Okay, so look, I guess the question is there something else for me to take? Like we've said, this is a very simple episode. I might have to pass. Like, there wasn't really much to go off, and you took the most obvious thing, and
That's because it's the one obvious thing.
right. I don't think there's anything else really to talk about in negatives for this episode. It's just not complicated enough.
Yeah, or at least in overall stuff, anyway. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Like, I don't know, maybe there was a boom mic somewhere, but I don't know.
Not that I saw.
They even kind of addressed things like, why aren't there empty cars crashing into each other? Which I'm pretty sure Infinity War never actually addressed. So,
yeah, they never did address that.
Actually, no. It sort of did, like, right at the end, because like the post-credits scene with
Nick Fury?
Yeah, there's like a helicopter crashes into a
That's
building
right.
or
Okay.
something like
Okay,
that.
so they did admit that people crashed and things crashed and possibly more people got hurt.
Yeah.
All right, so I guess that brings us to favorite scenes. Matt.
Favorite scene? Actually, yeah, this would have been my option 2 for an opening, was them opening up the newspaper for the robots and the robots starting to learn English. My option 2 would have been to add the dialogue from Short Circuit. Yes, Stephanie, more input, Stephanie.
Oh, that is a good one. That is a good one. And yeah, this was a much more, at least, dynamic way to do it than Jadoon just kind of like
doing a scan and then putting in their machine. Yeah.
Yeah.
Although nothing beats Starfire's method of learning English, but probably not for the Sarah Jane Adventures.
Oh.
Yeah. So Starfire in DC learns, like, assimilates knowledge by kissing people.
Oh, the Outlanders have planned. Gotcha. I got an animated movie called Outlanders, and through that I found out about the manga, which is a lot more detailed and a lot more interesting. But yeah, one of the main characters basically learns Japanese by kissing the main character. Yeah, it's like, oh, I see. Never mind.
All right. So Alex.
Honestly, I'm gonna go with the final scene of Ronnie and Clyde just kind of talking themselves up, and the sort of like score one for the hangers on thing. Because it's just nice, because like it's the whole point of the story, really, is just, again, like as I was saying before, it's just like them essentially kind of proving their worth, that they can handle. Again, not necessarily they'd be able to handle everything, every scenario thrown at them,
but these
like,
kids are definitely advanced
they were
to a
able
point
to
they can
handle
help.
them. Yeah, they were able to handle themselves without Luke, K9, Mr. Smith, and Sarah Jane.
Right.
So it's like, yay, we've we actually managed to solve this on our own. And it's like that it ends on like a happy note of just them being like, yeah, we do kick ass. We do deserve to be here.
So I think I'm going to say the scene early on with Clyde and Ronnie in the diner, where they're alternating between trying to figure out, trying to put their what they know together, and also trying not to freak out. So first Ronnie is like talking about what's going on, and then Clyde starts counting things, and Ronnie is like freaking out, and it's, I don't know. I mean, it's a great character moment, and it as I mentioned before, it really highlights the acting of the cast. It doesn't really move the plot along a whole lot, but it really leads into the moment that Alex was just talking about.
Yeah,
kind of sets up for it.
Yeah, and it's also a thing of like, I think it happens in that specific scene, but like, there's maybe like Clyde maybe cracks like one joke in that scene, and then kind of goes like, "Yeah, I'm just trying not to shit myself," kind of a thing. Like he flat out admits his only.
Actually, that was later on. I
Adam
think.
and Eve joke?
No, I think it was one of the other ones, but like he's like,
it was a little bit later on when he was making the countdown joke. Yeah.
Yeah, and he's just like, "Yeah, sorry, just trying to keep calm."
Right. Speaking of the countdown joke, what I was trying to find was footage from the '96 Doctor Who movie, Counting Down to New Year's. There would have been like nothing ever good happens at the end of a countdown except New Year's. Cut to the '96 movie, and then back to Clyde. But then that's kind of rubbish too.
Well, he's not wrong. It's rubbish because no one goes through with their plans anyway.
Was that leading somewhere, or I was about to, yeah, I don't know to move on or not.
I sort of forgot where we were, so it'd be to move on. Yeah.
Okay, so least favorite scene, starting with Matt.
Least favorite scene. Don't get me wrong, it was shot in an interesting way, but to have things constantly falling with nothing there at all, and then very briefly later on to those scenes of chasing nothing, they suddenly showed the kid, is a little bit weird. I was actually expecting something far more interesting than just another kid.
So it was kind of anticlimactic. There was so much lead up, and then you get Gavin.
Yeah, there was so much lead up, and then just what? This kid, Gavin? What?
Okay.
I was expecting a real monster or something.
All right, Alex.
I guess I'm just gonna go with the second Adam and Eve joke, because like the first one, I'm just kind of like, okay, that's like, you know, he's just kind of offhandedly making that comment, and like it's mainly a nitpick because at least Ronnie calls it on him,
right?
Or like calls him on it. Because like if she just kind of let it slide or something, it would be kind of like
the second time it was so much more explicit too. He's like, "Well, I guess we have to repopulate the planet from just the two of us."
And Ronnie looks about ready to slap him.
Yeah, but it's just like, it's one of those things of like the first time it comes up where it's like, "Oh my god, what if it's only us and we have to repopulate the universe?" But it's like he's being a bit more subtle. So she doesn't catch it immediately, and then has to be like, no. And then, but yeah, the second time is, ooh, what if they're gonna force it? And it's kind of an oddly, in a way, it's kind of oddly a risky joke for a kid show, really. To be like, what? Maybe they're gonna have to. Maybe they want to restart the population with just us. It's like, I mean, like, you know, they're not exactly explicit, but it's still kind of funny that they got away with that joke in a kid's show.
There were probably letters.
Yeah.
Letters? No. This is the 2000s. There's texts.
Can you text the BBC?
I'm sure you could tweet them or something by that point. This is right out. You'll be given from my solicitor.
But I guess it's funny, like if they'd just done the first mention of it, I wouldn't have minded, but I realized it's like, you know, time and place, Clyde,
It really is a time and place Clyde joke, essentially. It was eventually boils down to.
Got you. So for me, I'm going to say my least favorite scene was the Aaron something. Not because it was a bad joke in itself, but because it didn't go anywhere. If it had actually led to a punchline, I would have been cool with it. But it was like
that could have been another opening. Dang it! The punchline could have been Spaceballs. Suck.
They spent all this time confused by it, and then it didn't really have any sort of payoff for the amount of time they spent on it. So it just felt like a missed opportunity, or just like something that had no point being there because it just never led anywhere.
It was definitely a very awkward moment.
Yeah, it's one of those things where, like, even rewatching it earlier, I was like, this feels like this is supposed to just be leading to a realization of, oh, they're saying give us air when they mean give us the air. And even then, there's still that. But like, it does take like a little longer than it should for them to catch on. That it's like, if they wanted literally oxygen, then they would have just taken it. Like,
I wouldn't be take your oxygen.
It's like they wouldn't just be asking for it. So it's like, you would think, especially with how smart they've been presented as in the rest of the story, they take it. Yeah, I can see what you mean. It takes them a bit too long to figure out out what they mean.
The funny thing is, I imagine in a, like, if this were a season earlier, I think it would have been K9, or maybe not. Well, if it were in Doctor Who, maybe not in Sarah-Jane, but if it were in Doctor Who, I think K9 would have been the one to make the connection. Either that, or he would have been the one that was confused and the doctor correcting him. That might have been more likely. But this would be funny if it involved K9, but Clyde and Ronnie are not K9. All right, final thoughts.
Yes, some of the scripting for the main characters is really solid and really nicely done. There's some retooling I would do a little bit with how they handle that one scene about the air and the sun, and also how they handle Gavin in general. I just barely remembered his name. In fact, yeah, that's just it. Gavin is such a forgettable character that your brain almost leaks his name by the time you come back to trying to reuse it. Again, nothing wrong with the actor as far as I'm aware. I think it's just that he was really an underdeveloped character despite being necessary for the story. But other than that, most of this is pretty good, and it does a decent job of trying to give Ronnie and Clive a one-off episode to further develop them as characters. And that's probably what the major point of this is in the first place. So good on them for that.
All right, Alex?
And like, I remember this sticking out as one of my favorites when I was going through in my own time and watching a bunch. I don't remember if I've seen any of the episodes past this or not. But I definitely remember getting to this, realizing what the premise is, and just being like, oh shit, okay. This is actually really damn interesting. And I've now seen this like 3 or 4 times now, and it still holds up. Like, there are little like minor things here and there, but no like egregious things that I can really point to. And like, for something again where like it's the essentially child/teen actors having to prop up everything, because the only likely adult actors in this whole thing, as far as the bulk of it goes, are just the robots. Who don't get much dialogue anyway. And they use basically, it's like everything, like Gavin's used about the right amount, and the robots are used the right amount, and the main focus is where it should be on Ronnie and Clyde. And it's just like, it would have been so interesting to have gotten something like this with when Luke was still around to a point, but by that stretch, I feel like this probably would have been solved a hell of a lot easier if Luke was around. So it's one of those things that could probably only work with just Ronnie and Clyde. Of course, it's funny because I'm realizing K9 technically still would have been around, just non-functional, probably.
Yeah.
Quite possibly.
But or like again, he'd just be too far away, for them to get to him. Yeah, like I honestly would hold this up as one of my favorite Sarah Jane stories of what I've seen, which at this point is like the majority of it. But yeah, I definitely think this is one of the strongest stories.
Listening to you say Ronnie and Clyde, I just got this sinking feeling that maybe Ronnie was partially named because it would rhyme with Bonnie and Clyde.
It would not surprise me.
So my thoughts, I think for the type of episode that it is, the main two cast members carried it off extremely well. I wish Gavin was a more dynamic and interesting character, because I think that this is, especially since this is a two-parter, it's not just one 20-minute story. I feel like there was a lot of space to fill, and it would have been filled better if Gavin was interesting enough that we wanted to see more of him. Instead, we were just like, "Oh, good, that guy's finally gone." Which I imagine maybe that's what his aunt and uncle are going to say when they come back and he's not there anymore, because nobody told them where he was going. But yeah, it's for the type of story that it is, I think it was definitely solidly executed. Not as bad as it could be. And that entirely hinges on the fact that they had a cast that was capable of pulling it off. The one-off robots were decent. And yeah, I think that the type of story limits how good it could be. But it is as good as it could be within that, pretty much. All right, so now we go to ratings, and we start with Matt.
My problem with this episode is mostly nitpicks, but there's enough little nitpicks that I can honestly say that maybe it's just me, but I just can't quite give it a perfect, so I'm giving it a 4.5.
Okay, Alex?
By comparison to that, at least to me personally, and this could change, but I don't think there's enough dragging it down for me to really lower it. So I'm gonna be the high bar and give this a 5.
Okay, so I am going to agree with Matt and say that this is a 4.5 episode, which gives us an average of 4.67. So let me take a look at the ratings. I'm not messing with the master sheet because that is Rand's territory. So 4.67 puts this at tied for number 35 out of 412 things reviewed.
High marks.
And it is on par with Big Finish Class in Remembrance. Well, we're not looking at Big Finish, so it's on par with Big Finish, Class in Remembrance, and Susan's War: The Shoreditch Intervention. It is not quite as good as Whatever Happened to Sarah Jane, and it is better than, trying not to go to Big Finish or Doctor Who.
Oh wow, there's a large gap between.
It's better than Death of the Doctor. And Random Shoes, which are the next spin-offs that are below that.
And there is a decent gap in between.
Yes, that's 4.5. That's quite a bit of a gap there. So that is it for rating this episode. So those who are listening on YouTube, please let us know, what do you think? Do you agree with us about this story? Or do you think it's not as good as we suggest it is? Don't forget to like the video and to subscribe and ring the bell to get our exports every week. And don't forget to follow us on Twitch to get our streams every Tuesday night. Next time, we switch gears for our annual look at Torchwood, starting with Meat, written by Catherine Chigena, and starring John Barrowman as Jack Harkness, Eve Miles as Gwen Cooper, Bern Gorman as Owen Harper, Naoko Mori as Toshiko Sato, Gareth David Lloyd as Yanto Jones, and Kai Owen as Reese Williams.
All right. See you all next week.
See you then.